press secretary is an appointed role by the President of the United States. In the Biden administration, the first press secretary was Jen Psaki. The role is to share the president's thoughts and policies with the country and answer reporters' questions. That's where our Nick News reporter, Rory Hu, comes in. She spent the day in Washington, D.C. to learn what it takes to become a network correspondent.
Down in this narrow hallway, crammed with desks, laptops, and some of the nation's top journalists, is one of the most powerful rooms in the White House, the James Brady Press Briefing Room. It's here where journalists from TV, digital, print, and radio report on the activities and decisions made by the President of the United States. And it's here where one person holds the power of the press podium, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. I met the press secretary in her office in the West Wing of the White House. And just like her briefings, Jen treated me like a member of the press corps. Can you tell me about some of the responsibilities you have as the press secretary?
My job is to communicate with the American public on behalf of the president. Every day there's a daily briefing, which is an opportunity to do that, answer tough questions from reporters like yourself.
So how have you been working to repair trust and transparency between the president and the press corps?
The small role I could play during my time here was to reset the tone in the briefing room and make it a room where people can ask tough questions and should ask tough questions and expect they will be treated with respect. Part of what we do here is we stand up and we represent by our actions what democracy and respect of freedom of press and speech is.
How often do you meet with the president?
I see him nearly every day. This morning, I just saw him right before we met to talk about news of the day and get his feedback on what he wanted us to say in answers to questions, what was on his mind, what we had seen in the press, what he had seen in the press.
Ed O'Keefe is senior White House and political correspondent for CBS News. His job is to report on the presidential news of the day. And in full disclosure, we work for the same parent company, Paramount. So tell me more about your job and what you do here at the White House.
Well, no 2 days are exactly alike. And the one thing you have to be prepared for in this job is anything and everything. Because ultimately, anything or everything could become a problem for the president.
So what's the hardest part about your job?
I'd say there are three things. One, the hours can be long and unpredictable. Two, you never quite know what's going to happen. And the third, I think most challenging part, is taking those really confusing things and then explaining them in easier to understand ways.
So what's the biggest misconception about your job?
Well, the biggest misconception is that we see him every day. I think the other misperception is that we have a really big office here in the White House. We definitely don't. I mean, it's cool that we have one at all, but it's pretty tight. Go ahead.
So this is where you write all your articles?
This is where we write our articles, where we write our scripts.
Are you friendly with all the reporters here?
Most of them.
So at the same time, do you have to be secretive with them?
There's certain things you don't want the competition to know about, but for the most part, we're all covering the same events. The difference is you've got to try to get a little bit more information or something a little different, or talk to that one person that everybody else didn't get to talk to.
So for someone like me who's going into the briefing room for the first time, what advice do you have?
Come informed about what you're asking about so that if I ask you a follow-up question, you come prepared with all the facts and details. I think it's my responsibility to know as much as I can about policies and issues, and I also think the best reporters do as well.
I'm nervous now.
Oh, don't be nervous. I feel like you're gonna be fine.
At 3:45, the door opens, and Press Secretary Jen Psaki walks into the briefing room and starts reading her prepared notes.
Just wanted to start with
As I look around the room, all the reporters have their questions ready to go, just waiting for Jen to call on them. And then, as I raised my hand, it's my turn.
Rory, go ahead.
Hi, I just have a question and a follow-up. So first, there are concerns about the negative impacts of social media on the mental health of children. Will the White House take any actions to prevent these adverse effects?
This is a huge concern that we have, the president has, is the impact of social media platforms and the fact that it is largely unchecked. It is certainly something that Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy has talked about in terms of the impact of social media platforms on the mental health of young people. And so I would say the president, the first lady, all of us believe that more needs to be done.
And the internet has become a tool for children's education. A lot of students use the internet to learn. So how will the White House prevent children from getting misinformed from the internet?
Such a good question, too. There's certainly steps the government can take, but there's also an ongoing development of new tools, and we as parents need to keep educating ourselves about what's out there so we can make sure our kids have access to good information, informative information. We watch a lot of animal videos in my house. That's all good and positive, and not access to information that's misleading or problematic.
As soon as the briefing ends, the real work begins. Ed races back to his area and begins writing a story to air on CBS Evening News. How long until a news piece is in there?
The briefing's at 3:30. We go on the air at 6:30. So we've got only 3 hours, really, to turn around and figure out what we need. and put
Technically
together a
2,
brief.
because the briefing takes like 1.
Exactly, and thank you.
Wow.
The U.S., which has invested $19 billion in the global fight, is the tone matching what we're going to see, probably?
Yeah, I think so. We still haven't got the shot of the Capitol.
Right.
I think it's going to work out.
And in just 2 short hours,
We turn now to the pandemic. CBS's Ed O'Keefe reports tonight from the White House.
At the end of the day, what we're here to do is figure out what's going on, try to tell you as honestly and as truthfully as we can, and then asking questions of people in power.
what have you learned from this job?
What I have tried to do is play any small role in rebuilding trust with the public, but also to smell the roses and take in the moments in history that I am observing. Because I think even on your hardest days, you're witnessing history here. You're a part of history. Sometimes you're at the table for history. And I have taken that approach.
Thank you, everyone.
And with that, my day as a Nick News White House correspondent is over. I met Jen Psaki on her last day as a White House press secretary. I learned from Ed O'Keefe, one of the best in the business, and who knows, maybe someday in the future you'll see me back in the briefing room. But for now, back to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Rory. Great job. When we come back, meet the all-female pit crew who are making their mark in NASCAR. Stay with us.